Finance New Orleans Programs Committee Special Meeting Roll Call. Mrs. Giselle Johnson Banks.
Present.
Miss Andronika Morris.
Present.
Mr. Stephen Smith. Mr. Edgar Chase IV. A quorum is present.
Great. Let's go ahead and get started. We only have one item on the agenda today, so let's get right into it. Special business is we're going to be talking about the pre-application package and resolution. So I'm going to be turning this over to staff to take us through the documents.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Board Member Morris and Board Member Johnson Banks. Today, before you, you have an approval, a requested approval for a $35 million project. If you recall, we went through the same process or approval for the same project, except the first time we approved the bonds. This time we're actually approving the pilot. In the future, you will see these approvals together. This is our first one, so we're fine-tuning the process. And the deal came at us very quickly, and we just needed to accommodate some timelines. So for this time, this particular case, we're presenting a second part of this project, which is the pilot, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly so she can talk about the details of this project and the resolution.
Thanks, Damon. So as we stated, we are asking for a recommendation from the Programs Committee to the board for preliminary approval of the pilot. Christopher Park is a 204 unit new construction project located in Algiers that consists of 8 three-story garden style apartments and 12 townhomes. They have received $20 million in low income housing tax credits from LHC, and as Damon indicated, the $35 million multifamily housing bond that will be issued through Finance New Orleans. They're going in front of the State Bond Commission approval on September 17th. And one of the requirements for that approval is a preliminary approval for their pilot, which is what we have out front today, asking for the Programs Committee to recommend to the board that approval so that they can move forward. There's documentation in there as a part of our process regarding feasibility, the scheduling, market study information that we have discussed previously within the bond for the bond process. But overall, we're looking for that recommendation for that 5,000 pilot today. We will be following this meeting immediately with the board for that approval. Any specific questions regarding development cost or affordability that I can address going forward? I know there was a lot of information in that packet.
And board members, one last note. General counsel's on the line to answer any questions. As you know from previous transactions, general counsel is also involved and works with the developer's attorneys and make sure that all the documents are in place. So counsel is also available for questions.
Yes, and I also have Derek on the line who is working hands-on with this project that can actually go into specific details if you have any questions.
Madam Chair, are you there?
Sorry. Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I double muted myself and I was talking. Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
So I got the documents. Board Member Banks, have you gotten your copy of the docs?
Yes. I just went back to the previous email, so I'm looking through
Yeah.
them.
So my first question is we want to make sure, because we had a committee meeting last week. We didn't, the last committee meeting, I should say wasn't last week, but the last committee meeting we had about this, there wasn't any big updates to provide. And so since the project is ready for this preliminary approval, just want to confirm that it is the same, the numbers are exactly the same as were presented when we approved the project, when the board approved the project last time. And this preliminary approval is on underwriting, and that it will come back to this group and to the full board for final approval.
Yes, that is correct. This will come back to both programs committee and the board for final approval. Derek, you can confirm, but to my knowledge, there was no significant changes within the numbers. This was just a step for us to get the approval for the pilot. And as Damon indicated, this would have happened initially together. It was just a miss on my part that we didn't do the pilot at the same time. But going forward, you will have both of these approvals together, and there will be a second approval going in front of both committee and the board.
And so what are the, or do we have terms, or is this a preliminary approval in concept, or do we have an idea of how much of a tax reduction, tax relief they are going to need to make the deal cash flow?
So I'll defer the specific numbers to Derek. So Derek, if you want to address that.
Yes, I can. Good afternoon, committee members. If it meets your pleasure, I'll answer this question. So for this project, in terms of the pricing that we've outlined in our program, the pilot amount that the developer will receive is $5,000, which is our minimum. This is due to the fact that this property was previously publicly owned. So they did not have any taxes on the project previously or on the property previously. So with that, they are due to receive our minimum of $5,000 for a pilot.
So $5,000 and like annually, like, yeah, I want to make sure we understand like what kind of relief they're getting and what's the term. But yeah, like let's break the whole thing down.
Of course, no problem. And you can review that in the feasibility report as well if you'd like to take a deeper dive into the numbers. But yes, that would be annually. And then that would be with a 2.5% inflation increase. There are also some other fees that are included in that as well. So of course, there's the closing fee that would amount to $62,000, and the legal fee that is $35,000, as well as the application fee, which is $1,500. After that, the pilot is $5,000, and then would increase with an inflation rate of 2.5%.
And that's going to be not annually. You're not going to do that. Well, you could increase it annually. And so just so I'm clear, making sure that I'm asking the question in a way that you understand, like, so this is a placeholder number. This isn't necessarily the final number.
The pilot amount?
Yes.
This is the final number, yes, for the pilot.
So they're going to get $5,000 knocked off their annual taxes every year, and it's going to be increased at the rate that you talked about annually.
Sorry, no. So their taxes that they would have to pay would be $5,000 annually.
That's what that's the answer to the question was what kind of breaker they're getting. And so, yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure you understood the question. So it's a $35 million construction cost.
Sorry, the total development cost for the project is actually $53 million.
$53 million.
Yep. So approximately, little less than 54 million for the project. But yes, they would be paying $5,000 in a pilot. And with that, we've also looked in doing our calculations, and Byron can speak a little bit more to this as well. But we do look at their operating cash flow, and they're within the range, the reasonable range for operating in terms of their pro forma. So the tax break that they're getting does make their project viable, and it is not an over, I guess you would say, an extreme break.
Over subsidized.
Right.
And again, I'm not. Yeah, and the questions are not that's not a challenge to but I want to understand what they're getting and what we're getting in exchange, what they're giving and what they're getting in exchange for it. That's the point of the question, is
yes,
that in exchange for a very generous tax relief structure, they will be providing. So again, that's why I'm asking about terms. These units are going to be affordable. These are first backed by tax credits. What's the affordability term? How long? And because again, this tax break, this pilot, and how long is this pilot is the other question.
Yes, so the pilot is a 40-year term. In terms of the affordability, the project is 95% affordable. It has project-based vouchers. Majority of the units of the project are below 6% AMI. There are, I believe, maybe approximately 4 or so units that are market rate, and the remaining units are below 80%. 80% are below AMI. So it is mostly affordable. The pilot term is for 40 years.
40? You're saying 40, right?
40, yes, 40.
Yeah.
40.
So the tax credits are are they going to apply for an extension with they're going to guarantee an extension, or what's going to keep them beyond the 40-year the pilot? What else is going to keep them engaged for 40 years?
I can help with that question. So the thought process when we structured the CEA with the city and the Louisiana Housing Corporation was that these projects would turn over a couple of times within that 40-year time frame. So once that 40-year period is up, the contract, the way it's written, it is up. However, we do have preservation in mind. So the thought process is that every 15 years, a new deal is going to be done within this program. So when we get to the 40-year point, the preparation will be for the third turnover in the project. And the goal would be to reestablish another 40-year contract at the end of that term so that we could preserve the affordability of the projects.
Yeah, because the concept around the pilots under the IZ and the other pieces is that we're supposed to be getting 99 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, we would go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you're about to answer the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's the maximum we were approved to allow or to offer from the city was 40 years. So they gave us a set of parameters to create the program, and we built the program around those parameters. And one of those was a max of 40 years on the pilot side. And Jade helped out with the design of it, so she can jump in with some insight as well.
Yeah, Chairwoman Morris, Damon's right. When we went through the exercise with the city on determining just from a best practice perspective, what should be the length and term of tax relief, if you will, as it relates to the pilot, that was where the 40 years we FANO actually started with a lower number, and we ended up looking at other jurisdictions that were running them parallel with their bond financing, the term of bond financing, or the term of tax credit financing and making sure that the pilot could at least go that long, right? And so that's kind of where we are. But what I hear you asking is, what about the 99-year requirement in the MIS, right? And so I think that's a
And the
different,
biz.
yeah, that's a different question. Unfortunately, now I think that, you know, as the city weighs in on these processes, they may choose to, because the city has been involved in each one of these pilots as we have approved them. You know, when the city gets involved, if they choose to negotiate on their own behalf a 99-year deliverable on affordable housing, I think, you know, that would definitely be something that developers would have to consider. But I think, you know, they haven't gotten to that piece of it yet, because I think also they have to consider the enforceability of having 99-year commitments in place. And so I think, honestly, that's a little bit what we're dealing with on that end. But from our vantage point, the term of the pilot is the maximum is 40 years, not the minimum, but it's the maximum. So all pilots won't be 40 years. Some will be 30, some may be 15. But the maximum will be 40.
So yeah, but there is a 99-year deal underpinning this, the lease between the developer and the housing authority.
Right. So that,
because as I mentioned, this is public land.
Well, that contract stays in place because many of the developers do talk about the 99-year requirement. So as long as they have that 99-year requirement, they qualify for a pilot, assuming the terms of pilot qualification stays consistent over 40 years. So let's say at the end of this project, they have a 40-year pilot contract, but a 99-year affordability requirement. Well, that gives them the right to have another pilot for an additional 40 years. And so that 40-year max was established by the consultant, and I believe you were involved in that process. HRNA, I believe, was the consultant that gave the city a set of guidelines to work within. And so the city passed those on to us with the understanding that there is some mismatch between the underlying affordability contract and the pilot agreements. But the way we've set it up is that as long as the project meets the affordability requirements, it qualifies for a pilot. So
Gotcha.
We need to your
that
point.
Should help them.
Yeah.
None of us are going to be here in 40 years. Yeah, and we'll be alive, some of us, and many of us will be alive, but probably not in these exact spots.
We won't be working on
well, that's right. And this sounds like a really long time until you look forward down and look backwards at 40 years and some of the decisions that we're having to live with, particularly as it pertains to public housing. So just making sure that there is the ability to preserve and extend across the lifetime of this project. And I know one of the things that I've heard from developers is, that they're looking for these longer terms. They're looking for maximum terms with the pilots, because that allows them to go to their other financiers and say, listen, we've got to extend this. We've got to match following the golden rule. And the golden rule, unfortunately, is not going to be the land. It's going to be the money. And so Finance New Orleans can lead on this. And I'm pleased about the fact that right at the gate, we are not that they're our competition, but the IDB has refused to do pilots this long, despite the fact that developers need to do them. And it reinforces my personal belief that these deals always needed to come and live with the finance authority, because this team is capable of pulling this off. So, and again, but I want to make sure that you guys are, you're dotting the I's and crossing all the T's to make sure that we are getting what we want and getting what we need. So Giselle, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Board Member Morris, before you take action on this, I would like to suggest an action item which we're working on internally, just to let you know. Kelly and the team are developing a program guideline, a program manual for all of our programs, specifically for the Sustainable Developer Program. So right now we're looking at different templates. We have some information that General Counsel has already put together for us as a baseline. But the thing that we could do and will do is look at our preservation language that's built into the manual so that we can prescribe, at least have a plan of action for the end of the 40-year contracts. Contract is up, what do we do next? You know, what's in our power, at least what's in our power. We can, write that into the language so it's not ambiguous. And, this is going to change over the next 40 years. We think there's going to be some innovation and pilots and public finance overall. So this may be completely different in 40 years, but at least we can start writing in some language now. So that's something we'll take a look at on the staff side.
Okay, great.
That's a good idea, Damon. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, and let's moving through the agenda. We've got the item here. I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution forward for preliminary approval of the Christopher Park. And wait, it's Christopher Park. It's not Christopher Holmes. Because I know there was some back and forth over that one. Everything says Christopher Park, or that's right, right? I just want to make sure I call it by the right name. Hello?
Derek,
Sorry.
we have,
Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
there
Christopher
was
Park.
some back and forth, but Kelly and Derek, I'm asking you to give that answer, please.
Yes, the name was changed from Christopher Holmes to Christopher Park.
Okay. So I'd like to hear a motion to advance for the program committee to recommend approval of this resolution to the full board.
I move approval, recommendation of the resolution approving development of an in lieu of tax plan in connection with the construction development of Christopher Park Apartments.
Thank you, Board Member Banks. Motion's been properly moved, and as a result, we can go ahead and adopt it, given the fact that there's only two of us on the call. Is that correct, Attorney? Jade?
Looked like Jay fell off.
But I would say that's in order. I would think that's in order. Since it's only the two of us. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, ma'am. So that's the only item of the only item that we have on the agenda, unless we have any public comment.
No public comments.
All right, then I think this meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you in a few minutes.